Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. Once more, dear friends, let us go into the breach. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello, and once more, dear friends, let us go into the breach. So we definitely have a lot going on this week. This is one of our, I will say, people know I love this word, meteor conversations. But in the meantime, we want to give a couple of shout outs real quick. We are being live streamed right now, also obviously on Facebook on our Frontline with Joe and Joe page, but also on YouTube. With Jonathan Ross and HolyFaith Media, who we always give a shout out to, and also on Arana Nation, also up in Canada. I think the Canadians like us. I don't know why. I don't know why. But these Canadians, it's like they're sick and tired of the Justin Trudeaus of the world and the government clampdown on free speech and all the gender ideology and all that. So they have a voice, and I think they kind of like the front. I saw a couple comments from this week when it was posted saying like those two guys from New Jersey. But Michael Arana over at Arana Nation, Jonathan Ross, HolyFaith Media, Joe Campo over in Brooklyn. We thank you all for your support because you're here every week, and obviously we love the fact that you share our videos. And please, we ask you to continue to share our videos so that we gain more followers and keep bringing the truth out there. So, and that's what our job is. That's what we're all about. And
a little aside for our friend Artie. In Belleville, New Jersey, the books are back.
The books are back, Artie. Sorry, we'll figure out something down the road.
We're kind of experimenting with a backdrop, but for now, I think we got to go with the books. We got to keep them. So
unfortunately, there was we should talk about for a minute the
shootings,
the two shootings that happened
in Texas and in Ohio. Basically, obviously, they just happened. When we prepared for the show, this wasn't something we were going to discuss, but I think we'd be remiss if we did not at least say a few words about it. Basically, this doesn't shock me. Our country has lost its moral balance. I could recall when this happened in Connecticut many years ago. I was overseas and a friend of mine told me about it. And to be honest with you, I said to him then, and I'll say it again, expect more of this. This is what happens when you push God out of a society. This is a consequence of it. Guns do not kill people. I am not a gun guy. I don't have guns. But I will say this. If you want to kill somebody, you will find a way to do it. And I'm going to tell you this is going to happen on and on. These are wounded people. They are mentally ill. Many of these people come from broken homes. They are hurt. Our society is breaking down, and this is a consequence of it. Even if we banned all guns, this would still go on. And those who just pick at that, that's the low-hanging fruit. And this is coming from a guy in the Northeast who does not have a gun. I do not have an NRA card. I am just speaking from my heart. I truly believe the issue is bigger than guns, much bigger. And if you banned all guns,
still going to have the same
it's still
problem.
Going to happen.
You can't. How does a person honestly look at this country and the way we're told over and over again that God plays no part? Don't push your morality on me. There is no such thing as right and wrong. And all those same people, unfortunately, in these particular cases, they're going to politicize these things to try to take guns out of people's hands. We know that that's going to happen. But then they want to moralize. It's like you're the ones that chase God away. You're the ones who say there is no objective morality. There is no right and wrong, particularly when it comes to abortion, homosexuality, all sexual immorality. There is no right and wrong. And who are you to say? Then why do these tragedies bother you so much? In fact, it bothers us because we believe in right and wrong. You don't pick up a gun, no matter how angry you are. You do not go pick up a gun, walk into a mall, and start shooting people. But all you lefties out there who promote the secularism, the moral relativism, the modernism, the whole nine yards, why do you seem shocked when this happens? Why do you seem outraged when this happens? That then all of a sudden, like Joe said, we're not gun owners, but you want to blame gun owners? You have to explain to me how taking a gun away from a law-abiding citizen would stop these tragedies from occurring. And as Joe pointed out, you can pass all the gun control laws you want. They'll figure out if somebody wants to kill somebody, they will. And the more and this is a consequence of devaluing human life. Used to be that, in other words, in a Western society, you could very proudly say that the society is founded on the belief that all human beings are made in the image and likeness of God. If you say that now, they'll look to put you in a straitjacket. So we've kicked God out. We tell him we don't want him in our country, and then you're shocked when a kid walks into a mall and kills 20 people and injures 26, or the other shooting in Ohio where 9 people got killed. Well, we're not shocked. But this is not the result of our ideas. This is not the bad fruit of our ideas. This is the bad fruit of your ideas. All you leftists out there. You chase God away, you should repent of that. Or else, like Joe said, we're just going to keep seeing this. And like I said, repeal the Second Amendment if you want. It's not going to do anything to stop it. Not going to do anything to stop it. It's a shame. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
Okay, on to our show. Our first segment.
Oh, I want to say one thing. Because I know I'm saying this from the heart, and I know I'm saying it for you, and I'm saying this more importantly because I know it cheeses off the left beyond belief. Our thoughts and our prayers are with all the victims of these shootings. That's right. We send thoughts and prayers, and we pray to God for their well-being.
And prayers matter.
That's right.
Prayers change the world. The greatest revolution, my friends, is the revolution of the human heart. That's what we need to see in America, and that's no lie.
That's right.
Our first segment tonight, basically we want to touch a little bit about the Cummings-Trump tweet battle that took place in the beginning of the week. For those of you who don't know who Elijah Cummings is, he's the congressman who represents Baltimore. There was some nasty tweets that went back and forth between Donald Trump, our president, and Mr. Cummings. Basically, the gist of it, Trump used some very harsh words. He could probably have said it a lot better, to be honest with you. It was response, obviously, that's just how Donald Trump is. Donald Trump, if you attack him, he's going to attack you. He'll attack you if you're Asian. He'll attack you if you're Puerto Rican. He'll attack you if you're black. He'll attack you if you're white. He'll attack you if you're white. That is who he is. Basically, though, and this is the message that I kind of want to project throughout this little segment, and if you disagree, please add comments. I actually think that the term racist in this particular case from the DNC is being stated out of fear. As of right now, I've seen statistics at 22% as well as 35% of the black population. They are currently supporting Donald Trump, and they're terrified of this. And I actually think, while a lot of these people do think Donald Trump is racist, I would disagree with that, actually, and defend it. I think that a lot of this, like these comments that are being thrown out, are out of fear, and they want to change the minds of the black community, change those numbers, and bring them down.
But here's the thing. Why are they fearful? What is Donald Trump doing? He's pointing to the mess that was created by people like Elijah Cummings and saying to those very black people that live there, this place is rat infested. This place is a disaster. And Trump is saying, I didn't do it. Elijah Cummings did it. And Joe's got a list that we're going to get into of the 5 worst cities in the United States. They're all run by Democrats, and the congressmen in those districts are all Democrats, and most of them are black.
And for decades.
For decades. So it's like Donald Trump saying to the black people in the inner city, in these places, Newark included, Cory Booker, okay, because you didn't do anything for Newark, because Newark still has rats all over the place and large swaths of abandoned land and buildings and everything else in the West Ward, in the Central Ward. We're from there, so you can't lie to us about your traffic. Yeah. So, but this is your doing. Donald Trump points it out, and he's the racist. But you're holding your people down because you refuse to change your district. You refuse to change your city. And Donald Trump's the racist? And you have a lot to answer for, Elijah Cummings, and the people that are just like you. You're there for your power. And you know what you call those black people that are voting for Donald Trump? You call them uppity. And what makes them uppity? Because they want a better life. And guess who failed them? Guess who failed them? You did. And all the mayors of those towns and the congressional leaders who have been there for decades, like you, Mr. Cummings. You are the one that held them down, not people like us.
And also, I'd just like to throw, I also read a few statements coming out of Hollywood in particular, basically saying that anyone who supports Donald Trump is a racist. That is completely ignorant. There are many reasons why people voted for Donald Trump. I voted for Donald Trump, and I will vote for him again. And the main reason why I did is for Supreme Court justice.
That's right.
So that is a completely ignorant statement to make. It is inaccurate, and it's not fair. And I'll defend
Since when do they care about fair? Let's face it, look at these places. Let's take Newark for an example. And again, we're not blaming black Democrats. We're blaming all Democrats, because the problems in the city of Newark started way back when JoJo and I were just coming out of our mama's wombs, all right, when Hugh Adenizio was the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. So we're not blaming black or white. We're blaming the Democrats and the way they've treated the inner cities, Newark, Detroit, Oakland, Chicago, St. Louis, Memphis, all run by Democrats, okay? They've run them into the ground. They chased away the businesses. They chased away all the businesses. All right, they were corrupt as corrupt can be. They signed the deal with the devil with the teachers unions. So that's all they're concerned about in the inner city is making sure they keep the money flowing that they take from all the people in the suburbs and the property taxes, bring it into the city. In the case of Newark, bring it into the city of Newark, and then they distribute that money after taking their skim, of course, okay, because these are corrupt people. They take their skim and then they pay off their unions. All their unions. That's what they do, and those unions, they keep them in power. That vicious cycle has a victim, and the victims are the black people living in the inner city. Donald Trump hit the nail on the head. He's concerned about the black people who have been under your thumb, all the thumbs of all you Democrats in the inner city for decades, as Joe pointed out, for decades. I've been hearing, how many times we said, since we're kids, we've been hearing about Newark's going through a renaissance. Did you know that Newark's going through a renaissance? Newark is an S-hole. That's what it is. That's our hometown. I'm proud that I'm born in Newark. My wife can't understand why I say that. But nonetheless, I'm proud of being born in Newark. I wouldn't want to grow up anywhere else. All right? Newark is an S-hole. That's what it is. And it's that way because the Democrats ran it into the ground. There will never be a renaissance in Newark because the culture, the culture of corruption is what needs to change. And these Democrats, along with their allies in the House of Representatives that run those districts, they don't want things to change. It's just a little bit too comfortable for them.
By the way, other people have criticized Baltimore, including Bernie Sanders, in the press publicly.
How come that got overlooked?
Nobody cared about that.
What did he say? He said something, I think as harsh or worse than Donald Trump said.
It was like rat infested.
Yeah.
Something along
So Mr. Sanders said that there were rats in Baltimore.
No one cares.
But he gets away with it because he's so crusty old socialist Bernie Sanders.
So let's talk a little bit about Baltimore. I want to throw you some statistics as far as what's going on in Baltimore currently, because frankly,
See, these are facts.
They're pretty staggering, if you ask me. One of the worst school districts in the country. The next one blew my mind. In 13, mostly all black high schools, not one kid was proficient in math.
Not one.
Not one in 13 high schools.
Not one.
In 2018, black unemployment was triple that of whites. We are currently in an unemployment number that is in record lows. Historically speaking, across the United States, it's the highest employment for blacks in America. And in Baltimore, I'll say it again, it was triple the unemployment rate for blacks versus whites. 1/3 of the black citizens in Baltimore have zero net worth.
Nothing.
Zero net worth.
And they probably owe money.
And this is the city the left is defending.
Right.
This is the city the left is defending. Frankly, instead of getting into this nonsense, what are you doing to help these people?
Well, you know, you knew this was coming when they said, well, why don't you give us more money? And this is where Joe and I are going to blow a gasket and say, as we always say, the answer is no. You've gotten way too much money over the years, way too much money over the decades. You rob people who own property under this pretense of, well, they're rich. No. My mother's an 80-year-old woman who pays $10,000 a year in property tax in northern New Jersey, okay? And she's on fixed income, all right? It is not the rich who are getting hosed. My mother's got to pay taxes. so that the corrupt politicians in the city of Newark and Donald Payne, I don't even know if he's still there or he got replaced by another corrupt congressman, but anyway, that was Peter Rodino's old seat. So again, it's not black and white, it's all Democrat. My mother's got to pay 10 grand a year in property tax to pay the teachers in the city of Newark or in the city of Baltimore, the suburbs of Baltimore, that pay for the school system of Baltimore. Not one kid, not one is proficient in math in 13 schools. You can't find one. With all the trillions of dollars that have gone into public education in our lifetimes, one kid in the city of Baltimore doesn't know how to do math? Is this a joke? And then when we say, you know something, we need to figure out how we're going to change this. No, you just hate the teachers. You just hate the teachers.
See, racism is not pointing out the faults of the city. Racism is not caring enough to do anything about it.
That's right.
That's what racism is. What we're saying is politically incorrect, but it needs to be said because it has to get addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Period. End of story.
But addressing it, Joe, requires, Joe and I were talking before the show, this goes back to the overall, I mean, this is just a manifestation of it. This goes back to the overall reason why the front line with Joe and Joe is here and why there's many, many, many other people that are speaking the way we do, is because when the left says they want to sit down and have a dialogue or a conversation, that's a euphemism for you're going to sit down and we're going to tell you what we want and you're going to do it and you won't argue with us. And if you're not willing to do that, then they start the name calling. You're racist, misogynist, and all the issues. Deplorable. We're deplorable. Okay. If you wanted to have a real conversation with real people who know exactly what the problems are, you're going to lose power. And that's why the Democrats don't want to have that conversation, because it will require them, it would be necessary if there's real reform, that they're going to lose power. They lose power over the city halls. The unions are going to lose power. You're going to allow for, well, Joe will get into a minute, some of the solutions. The teachers' unions are going to lose power. The public education establishment is going to lose power. But who are they losing power to? The people. The people. Where people could start organizing and making their neighborhoods. One neighborhood in Newark is not unlike any other place in human history. It could be reformed. It starts.
Jersey City was. It starts in the home and then it branches out from there. The first thing, as we said earlier, it'd be a really good idea if you invite God back into the conversation. But if you're not willing to do that, at the very least, you have to realize that the path you're on leads to destruction. It's what we're seeing. That's why we're talking about rat-infested areas, because this is the result of all the social engineering that's gone on for the last 50, 60 years. Let's talk about a few things the Democrats have done in cities like Newark and Baltimore.
Oh, I can't wait.
They've taxed soft drinks. They've put in the lottery, which robs poor people.
That's right.
They've taken away charter schools. Talk to a single mother in the city of Washington, D.C., when the charter schools were taken away by Barack Obama and their kid has to go to a decrepit public high school. See if they were happy about it.
Quick question about that. Why is it that the concerns of single black moms who want their child in that charter school, now all of a sudden they're not going to listen to that woman, her needs, her concerns, her desires for her children to be in a better school? What they do is they try to convince that woman, no. You don't understand. Your child is better off in the public school. That woman's not dumb. That woman's not dumb. Why? Just because she's a single mom. She knows enough to know that the school you want to send her kid to is decrepit and broken down. Is not even going to teach him how to do math. All right, and wants the charter school. So where's the concern for the black parents that want to send their children?
That's about the union.
Well, yeah, because that's where so much of their power comes from.
Period. Let's talk about the 5 most dangerous cities in America. I just want to give a little rundown so you all know. I'm going to start from 5 down to 1. Number 5, Kansas City, Missouri. They've had a Democratic mayor for 28 years and a congressman for 70 years.
Democrat congressman.
Number 4, Memphis, Tennessee. They've had a Democratic mayor for 28 years. They've had a congressman representing them for 26. Baltimore, Maryland. Number 3. They've had a mayor who's a Democrat for 52 years and a congressman who's a Democrat for 66 years.
And Elijah Cummings has been in the House of Representatives as that representative. I don't know the exact number, but it's a long time.
Number 2, Detroit, Michigan.
Ooh, there's a shock.
They've had a Democrat as mayor for 57 years and a congressman for 70 years who's a Democrat. Number one, St. Louis, Missouri. They've had a Democratic mayor for 70 years, and they've had a congressman who's a Democrat for 70 years. Do you know what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
It's insanity if I've ever heard it.
That is insanity.
Yep.
How about we try something different? And that's the message that Donald Trump is giving to the black community. He actually said this to them. What do you have to lose?
He was called a racist for that too.
It's not.
That was on the basis of that. What do you have to? What he was saying was he was telling the liberal Democrats that run these cities and enslave these black people, because that's what it is. Dinesh D'Souza has covered this whole thing, so we don't have to rehash the whole thing. Just Google Dinesh D'Souza inner city plantations. You'll get his very thorough analysis of it. These places are plantations, okay, and they are run by the white liberal establishment slave owning class, okay, and they have the black liberal establishment leadership right below them, because remember, liberals they're all into, you know, the white liberals. They always want to be on the top, and then they feed them enough money, and there's a whole enough corruption to go around, and they allow all the corruption to filter down into the neighborhoods and into the city. And what is happening? They keep all these people in chains. They can't go anywhere. See, they blame people when they move out. Thank God people can move out. What about these people? What about these black kids and these black moms and fathers in the inner city that say, you know what? Let me get the hell out of here. You've taken away their ability to even leave. They're not educated. They don't have any skills because they came out of that corrupt system, and they live in the same 6 blocks that they grew up with.
Let's talk a little bit about the city that we came from. Newark, New Jersey, as of 2007, I read this. So now we're talking 12 years ago. But in 2007, it cost $24,000 to educate a child in the public school system if you broke down the budget per kid. Newark currently graduates 3 out of 10 kids in high school. That is disgusting. 24K per kid. That was in 2007. By the way, in Newark, New Jersey, there's a high school, St. Benedict's. There's a lot of arguments about charter schools.
Well, go make the comparison.
St. Benedict's costs $12,000 a year. All black kids, a lot of it's like 70% of the high school.
You know what? I think that school goes out of the way to make sure that they try to people from that area. And they're St. Benedict's. Let's be clear. It is on. That is South Orange. I think it's South Orange Avenue and Martin Luther King Boulevard.
It's in the hood.
It is Central Ward of Newark, right? And it's not far from downtown, from Broad and Market. Okay, so it's where this school needs to be. Go ahead.
They graduate 100% of their kids, and 99% of them go to college.
Right.
If the city gave vouchers for kids to go to St. Benedict's, not only would you get a better, basically, output of graduation, you would save you'd save what? $12,000. It's probably even more than that.
But who's not getting them? See, again, this all comes down to money, and it all comes down to corruption.
Because they don't care about the kids.
Right. So
they don't care
that's the
about
overall
the kids.
point. You care about the money, Mr. Cummings. We know that about you. I don't care if you're black.
By the way,
we know you're a corrupt Baltimore politician.
Baltimore, the stats we just talked about, by the way, 13 high schools, not one kid is proficient in math. Guess how much it costs to educate a kid in Baltimore now? Take a guess.
I'm about to throw up. Go ahead.
$15,848.
Right.
$15,848.
Can't do
and
long
you don't
division.
have one kid that can't even do math.
Right. Right. Now who and then you want to blame, first of all, they blame us. Whenever you criticize the public school system, all right, and the corruption in the public school system, the first thing they say is, all you white people don't want to pay for the black kids to go to school. That is the biggest lie that there is. There is plenty of success going on. Like you said, St. Benedict's Prep is the perfect example. St. Benedict's Prep is a model of education.
Google The Rule. It's a movie. It's an hour. It's on PBS. You could learn all about it. Fantastic, fantastic documentary.
But you know how Hillary Clinton, you know how I remember how she dismissed that idea. So this was a while ago. This is a few years ago. But when somebody put it to her about why are you opposed to school vouchers for these women, let's face it, it's mostly single moms in the inner city who want their children to go to a better school. And she said, well, if we start down that road, what if we give a voucher to a mother and father that want to send their children to a Nazi school or to a school that teaches the virtues of the Ku Klux Klan or something along those lines. I want to say, are you smoking crack? You're comparing sending your child to a Catholic school like St. Benedict or Seton Hall Prep or Essex Catholic was in East Orange. Okay, in other words, South of Seton Hall Prep was in South Orange when I was there. So the thing is, you're going to compare sending allowing these parents to send their children to for a better education in the Catholic school system to a parent that wants to send their kid to some neo-Nazi school? Really? That's the best you could do, Mrs. Clinton? This is about 10 years ago.
Again,
but you see how they try to demonize people?
So sad.
Because they know that their argument makes no sense. Joe just told you in Baltimore they spend 15 grand per kid. In Newark they spend 24 grand per kid.
That was in 2007.
When are people going to start to realize? When are people, especially, and remember something, the reason why the property tax situation doesn't change and all that money keeps flowing is because the liberals in the suburbs keep voting. They don't do anything about the property taxes, mostly because they're so fearful of electing anybody who might disagree with them on abortion or gay marriage, all right? And they say, well, we can't vote for that Republican because they're against choice. Yeah, but you're voting for the Democrat. In other words, and that's all they're doing is robbing you. And the kids are getting nowhere. The kids are not getting educated.
But they don't care about those kids.
Well, I wonder how they're going to be made
They don't
to
care about those kids, frankly, because they don't have to go there, and they're not interested. We're actually going to provide some solutions. I'm going to throw some solutions at you. Number one.
Here's good. Put on your seatbelt.
Promote marriage, family, and responsible fatherhood.
How dare you, Joe? How dare you?
I'm going to tell you a little story. It's the story of the Resinellos. My grandfather came here at 16, landed in Newark, didn't speak English. He worked in a factory. He raised 3 kids. Every single one of them left Newark and bought a house in the suburbs. And here I am. It can be done. Why did that happen? Because he was devoted to his wife. They worked together as a team. They built a life. They cared about their kids. They raised their families. And the kids made it out. There is the solution. I've said this on another show. Now, what's the biggest factors in poverty right now? No, to avoid poverty. Right now in America, get a high school degree. Newark, you're already 7 out of 10 kids aren't getting that.
Right.
Get a high school degree, stay in a committed marriage, and work. My father didn't go to college. He lived in the suburbs, owned a home, married 50 years. Promoting, I'm going to say it again, family, marriage, responsible fatherhood. Okay, responsible fatherhood. What does that mean? That means being faithful to your wife. That means stop jerking around. That means working. That means bringing your check home. That means doing the dishes with your wife. That means coming home every day. That means tucking your kids in every day.
Spending time with your kids.
That means saving money for college. That means teaching them how to ride a bike. That means being there 7 days a week, 365 days of the year.
What's the ultimate word you're looking for, though? That means sacrifice. That was always the key. We said this before. My best friend, I had lunch with him a few months ago, and we were talking about this. He said, why were the immigrants able to come? Why were our grandparents able to come here? They had nothing, no education. Like Joe just said, his grandfather didn't speak a lick of English, okay? Why were they able to survive and have very big families, not buy into this new Americanist lie that abortion is necessary because you can't have too many kids and you got to keep it at 2 kids because it'll hinder your success. These are people that had 8, 9, 10 kids, okay? And they were able to make it. Why? Because there's always one word that underlies it all: sacrifice. They had a sense of sacrifice. That's my child. I'm going to sacrifice for my child. In other words, that's it. In other words, we live in a culture that is devoid of sacrifice. As soon as you tell some of these young black men in the city, listen, you impregnated that girl. That girl had the baby, thank God. All right, now you're going to go and marry her and you're going to raise your child. Don't look to me to raise your child.
If you can't, give the child up for adoption.
Well, I'm saying, but even aside from that, from it, we're talking about people who absolutely are capable of let's say, getting back with their girlfriend, marrying her, all right, the mother of your child, raising your child, being responsible, sacrificing. Stop listening to the culture, okay? Stop listening to the culture and go to work, all right? That is not racist for me to tell you that because that's the way everybody does it.
By the way,
you're being told, I'm sorry, Joe, but you're being told that, no, you don't have to do that. And as soon as anybody in the black community ever says anything like that, says, you know, these kids really should, they should get with the woman, the mother of their children, marry them, and start raising their families. That person is crucified.
By the way, I'm very familiar with the poverty statistics in America currently. Black families that stay together, believe it or not, have a higher rate of being successful in America than white families.
Of course they do.
Actually, believe it or not, that's a misconception. If black families that are together and faithful to one another have a higher rate of not being poor than white families in America.
Right.
So I'm just telling you, this is the secret. My neighbors are from the former Czech Republic. They came from a communist country. They don't have fancy jobs. They work very, very hard. They have one child. Their child goes to Bergen County Academy. It's the #9 high school in the United States of America. They own a house.
They're immigrants.
They're
immigrants.
20 years. Why can they do it? And in Newark, because this is something we're very familiar with, it can't be done. You know why they do it? Because they're devoted to one another.
That's right.
They both work hard, and they're working towards a common goal, to take care of their child. And they both do it well.
That's right.
And that's why they own a house. That's why my parents owned a house. They're not brain surgeons. My mother would. I've said this a million times. My father worked in a barbershop, a one-man barbershop in Belleville, New Jersey, and my mother was a secretary in Woodridge High School. They owned a house. They sent me and my brother to college, and they've been married for 50 years. That's number one. Number two solution, because I'm about solutions. I'm not about just pointing out problems. I'm about solutions. Number two,
or ideology. Let's face it. We're talking about being in an ideological lockstep. And just very quick, Joe. Eddie pointed out. This speaks to what we're saying. Thanks for checking in, Eddie. We need to let go of our fear of questioning the sacred cows of American politics. And the left has their sacred cows, and the education establishment is one of them. Now, this is why what Joe's about to mention is opposed beyond belief. Fire comes out of their eyeballs when you mention what Joe's about to mention as a practical, non-ideological solution, or part of the solution to some of this.
Expand charter schools.
Oh, there's just.
I just gave an example of
What a
Newark.
revolutionary
3 out of
idea.
10 kids graduate high school in Newark. Baltimore, 13 high schools, not one kid is proficient in math. It costs almost $16,000 a year to educate a kid in Baltimore. In Newark, as of 2007, it costs $24,000 a year. How about give vouchers to those kids? They can go to a better school. They will succeed. They will succeed. You know why they don't do it? Because of the sacred cow of the teachers' union.
That's right.
They don't care. They want their pensions. They don't care about the damn kids.
That's right.
And stop with the nonsense. I'm giving you a solution right there. You could send your kid in the city of Newark to St. Benedict's High School. You could pocket maybe close to $20,000, the city. Give a voucher to a single mother who wants to give their kid a better education. And you won't do it.
They won't.
And they never will, because New Jersey is finished.
No, the only way to do it, and this would take in a liberal state like ours, this would take a lot of doing. The property tax structure in this state needs to change. It needs to change. If you're a property owner and you do not send your child to the public school, you need to be able to deduct that portion of the money that you're spending in tuition for your children off of your tax bill. Or you should not pay that portion of the property tax bill that goes for public education. But we don't have, in this state, we don't have the political will to do it.
Well, Joe,
we know they're not going to do it in New York State because Cardinal Dolan proved that. Andrew Cuomo stuck it right in his back. He stuck a knife right in his back when Dolan was just trying to get a tax credit for families that want to, let's say, write that portion off of their property tax bill to send their kids to private school. We know that godforsaken state is not going to do it. And we certainly get the feeling that this godforsaken state is not going to do it. But that would be the solution. I don't want to send my child to your corrupt public school anymore, whether, by the way, in the suburbs or in the inner city, because the suburbs, as far as quality of education, it's all indoctrination centers and cultural agenda and everything. So that's no big bargain. But we will not allow or have a law in the state that will allow you to take that portion of the property tax bill and send your kid to the school you want. Or, like you said, allow for the one thing when you have this monopoly in education, which is competition.
Bingo.
You need to
You're
have
just gonna take
competition. Competition. See, Joe and I are the first ones to say are critical of those who have a knee-jerk worship, if you will, of the free market. But we are free marketeers. We understand the value of competition. Competition is not where it's not a zero-sum game like Oliver Stone tries to make it. It's one against another, and they compete where they both rise up because competition makes both better. Okay, so if the public schools, if the politicians would allow for competition against the public schools, when the public schools are going to be forced to get better or go away. And then what happens is then you have the rise of private schools. And I really don't care if the school is public or private. If you're giving the best education to my child, that's really all I care about. So who benefits in the end? Again, free market. The consumers benefit in the end at a much better cost.
And also, charter schools give parents control. Who better to know what's best for a kid than their parents? It gives them control. States like Louisiana have this voucher system as well as charter schools. It will bring, like Joe said, competition into the education place, and I think it'll improve it.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Well,
get ready.
Get ready to be called a racist.
Strong police presence.
Yes.
What does crime do? Crime causes poverty. What does crime do? It drives out business. When I say strong police presence, I mean hiring people from the community. Why? Because they care. The police should come from the very community that they are protecting. In New Jersey, being a cop is a good job. You get paid well, you get a good pension, you get good benefits. We should know the names of the police officers. There should be good communication between the community and the police, and it should be worked on. It should be one of the primary focuses of the police department.
But make no mistake about it, okay? If you want that form of, I won't call it community policing, but like your solution, have people from the neighborhood become cops. A lot of kids I grew up with in North Newark, they became cops.
Good job.
All right, they know Newark. They wanted to become cops. But here's the thing. So if you're a young black kid from the Central Ward and you want to become a cop, okay, and this is the type of thing that they institute, let's use the city of Newark as an example. Well, the bottom line, though, here's the thing. Those cops are going to demand respect. Those cops are going to get respect. And this is the one thing that the liberal media always wants to hammer, that cops are racist and blah, blah, blah. Law enforcement needs to be changed. No, law enforcement doesn't need to be. Respect for authority needs to be brought back into some of these places. You mouth off to a cop or throw a bucket of water on him, you're arrested. And you're prosecuted for doing so. That's what's supposed to happen if you assault a police officer, whether with your fist or a bucket of water.
There should be no tolerance also towards police abuse. And if it's done, immediately it should be addressed. No quarter on the police side. You take cities like Chicago. There was a time under Rahm Emanuel where 60 people a weekend were getting shot. To be honest with you, that is unacceptable. They should have called in the National Guard. And if I was a father living in those communities and I have children, I have 3, I would thank God if the National Guard was there. Keep me safe.
Right.
A lot of the people who were getting shot by stray bullets. My kids can't play in the front yard. It's disgraceful.
But that's one of the things. So you want businesses to go back there. When we grew up there, there were businesses. There were small businesses, but those businesses were part of our local economy. The owners of those businesses, no matter who they were, pharmacist, butcher, who were the guys who ran the bakery, whatever the case may be, all those businesses were making money. The people were working, they were going and they were spending money in those businesses. But if those businesses didn't feel like they were protected by the police, in other words, from vandalism, from robbery, from all those things, they're not going to stay.
Of course
not.
Why
would they say? But now getting back to very quickly Baltimore, all right, and put a finer point on it because we do need to move on to some other fun topics. You know what? This is to me this is a perfect example of the problem. One of the problems is that when we talk about restoring law and order in the cities, when the mayor, after the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore, I think it was the mayor or that woman who was the prosecutor, and she got up there, I believe it was the mayor actually, turned around and said, "Oh, and the protesters, and we're giving them their space to do their thing." That right there is an example of the bankruptcy of the left. Protesters do not get space to break things and hurt people and attack the police. They get arrested. And when other people in the inner city see people getting arrested who deserve to be arrested for breaking things and hurting people, then the police gain the respect back. So that you could reestablish law and order. But when you have that, I only use that as an example. When you have that attitude that mayor had, you're just inviting chaos. You're just inviting anarchy. It's a complete breakdown.
She says that just to keep her job. She's placating.
Right.
She's placating into the political, basically, language of the time. And that's the whole deal. You want to revolutionize these areas. We're giving you some solutions. Try something different. Try something different, because I got news for you. It's not working. 50 years I lived near Newark, New Jersey. My parents came out of Newark, New Jersey. 50 years. It is a hole. And the cities that we just went down, they are too. And the only people who are suffering are the people in it. The only people who are suffering are the people in it. The only people who are benefiting are the politicians. Getting rich.
That's it. And
getting rich.
And that corruption needs to end, and we'll put a finer point on it. We'll move on to the next topic. But the bottom line is, all the people that are so complacent, all right, and so indifferent to the amount of money you're paying in property tax and everything else that goes to support these corrupt systems, why don't we start to organize in the state of New Jersey? Why don't we start to say, we don't want to pay this kind of money in property tax. I don't want my taxes going to the city of Newark until you start doing something about it. I don't mind helping people, but until you do something to where you're showing some real results, okay, in the case of the city of Newark, and this could apply to any, because every one of these urban disasters is all surrounded by wealthy suburbs. All right, so Cleveland is surrounded by Shaker Heights, and Detroit has Bloomfield Hills. Newark has Essex County. Okay, they're surrounded by wealthy people who don't live there, but they're surrounded by wealthy people. The people who have the money in the suburbs have to say that we're not sending you any more money until you show us how you're going to change. And the solutions that you talked about, police presence, stronger police presence, school vouchers is one of the biggest ones. Okay, and the reestablishment and the encouragement of families.
And
fathers. And fathers. But anyway, we're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. Sunday night at 8 o'clock, and we are in the breach, Vinny. We're in the breach because we're about to start talking about the Democratic National Debate with Bernie Sanders as the headliner and Elizabeth Warren as his co-star. All right, and we got Maureen joining us. Thanks for joining, Maureen. Dominica joined, Leone, Eddie checking in from Florida. Congratulations again. Eddie just won his bodybuilding contest a couple weeks ago. Lou's joining. My man, Vinny, from Hoboken. And my baby's out there, Artie. And we've got a whole bunch of people right now. We'll be following, pretty good following right now. So let's move on to more of the intellectual bankruptcy that was on display this past week at the Democratic National Debate.
As Joe said, we had two debates this week in Detroit, 2 rounds. I'm going to summarize them, basically very short and sweet, and then we'll get into the meat.
Just because I forgot this, okay? How appropriate is it that the DNC debates were in Detroit? So they're having the debates in the city that has been presided over, as Joe pointed out earlier, by Democrats for 70 years.
Yeah,
go ahead, Joe.
Is it Detroit, just so I get it? 57 years.
Oh,
and 70 years for Congress. I want to be exact.
Close enough.
But let me just summarize the 2 nights, and then we can get into a little bit of talk in some detail. First night basically was about the realist, if you want to call them that, Democrats versus the socialists. That basically you had people who were basically trying to have an intervention with Warren and Sanders. And then the second night was basically, let's all circle around Joe Biden and beat the living snot out of him. Mm-hmm. That was the debates in a nutshell. We can get into what people talked about, and I'm going to do that a little bit. I mean, I think Biden, for the most part, held his own. He spoke, I heard, 21 minutes. Mm-hmm. In the second, he held his own. I think they attacked him left and right. An interesting thing, though, which was said by some pundits on the left, they basically said that they attacked, instead of Trump, this is the second debate, they were attacking Obama's policies, Joe, which I found to be interesting. And the more I thought about it, and this is coming from Joe Scarborough as well as Don Lemon, you can Google that and see what they said about it. And there were a number of articles written. The more you think about it, Joe, I mean, if Biden becomes the nominee, he cannot separate himself from Barack Obama. No. And frankly, the attacks that came from his fellow Democrats particularly around immigration. Keep this in mind. Barack Obama deported 800,000 people. Is that mic on? 800,000. That's not a very popular thing right now. That's what he did. That's under Biden's deal. I mean, he can't separate himself.
No,
from that.
he can't. He was part of that White House. That's it. It's Obama Biden.
There you go.
So that was the ticket. That's who ruled in America in the executive branch for 8 years. And Biden cannot separate himself from that. And they have no choice. You see. You think these people, they want to bash Barack Obama, but they have no choice. Don't think, by the way. See, these people are about power. They're Machiavellian in that way. Obama's making tens of millions of dollars. Okay, he is the 1%. He has effectively used public life to become a 1%er. Instead of actually creating something or making something or inventing something and starting a business, he basically is making money because he was a public servant. All right, and he became president. So. But you have Barack Obama, okay, who's making all this money.
Just bought an $8 million house in D.C.
Really? So he doesn't care. And you don't think that somebody got to him, Tom Perez, or one of them went into the back room and said, "Listen, Barry, we have to talk. We don't want Biden, okay? We're moving more towards the left. So we want your blessing. We're going to beat the crap out of you in the debate because we need to get to Biden and we need to take him down." And you don't think for a second, the Machiavellian that he is, he said, "You do what you got to do." I see that. I'm not saying he did that, but I see that happening, okay? Because remember, Obama's about power. Obama wants to stay relevant. So he can take a little bit of bruising in the debates and then come out of it smelling like a rose on the other end, okay? They'll bash him now and they'll love him again later, as long as they get what they want. And what they don't want is Joe Biden. And let's remember, Joe and I have said this before, Joe Biden's no moderate. I don't care what people say. Okay, he's not a moderate. So I'm getting really tired of that. You know who the moderates were? The moderates, who were the moderates on the debate the first night?
Delaney from Maryland. You got the governor of Montana, Steve Bullock, and then
is it Seth Bullock?
It could be Seth.
Maybe I'm confusing him with the character from Deadwood.
The governor from Montana, and then you also have Tim Ryan. I know we have different views.
Well, let's talk about that further. Let's talk about the moderates in the Democratic Party. They're not moderate. You see, Tim Ryan. I hope you're listening, Congressman Ryan. See, we're fellow Roman Catholics over here in New Jersey that might be willing to sit down at the table with you and talk to you when it comes to workers' rights, the rights of organized labor. We might be willing to talk to you about that as conservatives, okay? But up until 2015, you enjoyed the endorsement of all the pro-life groups in Ohio. And then you decided you wanted to hit the national stage. And it was more important. So protecting the lives of the unborn became not as important as getting the endorsement of people like Planned Parenthood. So you're not a moderate. You would have been a moderate if you were a pro-life Democrat like Casey was back in the 90s, Governor Casey from Pennsylvania, and people like that who represent many, yes, Catholic and pro-life people in your Youngstown district. But you sold your soul, you see, and people know that. And now you're toast. Nobody cares. I wouldn't sit down with you. If I was a conservative and I'm in the House of Representatives, I'm not sitting down with you because I know you're a liar and I know you're an opportunist. And yes, the word Joe and I like to use for Roman Catholics, particularly the pro-choice variety, is disgraziad. That's what you are. This is the moderate, sells his soul to Planned Parenthood so he could jump on the national stage. How about you show some balls? How about you challenge the status quo in the Democrat Party if you really want to do something? Because you know who acts like more like a middle of the road type of guy, but yet is pro-life and is appointing sane judges? Donald Trump. That's why people like us voted for him. That's why people in your district voted for him. Because you know what? He reflects my values more than you do, Mr. Ryan. You were pro-life. Now you're pro-abortion. So you show that you're just a political opportunist. He's the moderate, though. That's my whole point in this diatribe. He's the moderate. Delaney is the moderate, okay? Why? Because they don't want to take health care away from 180 people or 180 million people.
Well,
that makes you a moderate?
That's a good point, too, because I wanted to touch on that, particularly around Sanders. Sanders is a taker. He's not a creator. What I want you to do is all of Sanders' ideas, the question you have to ask is how are you going to do this? When he ran against Hillary Clinton, in their debates when they were basically vying for that nomination, and it was stolen from Sanders, basically.
He got robbed.
He did, straight up.
I said that to my liberal friends at work. I said, if I was a Democrat and I was like one of you guys, I said, I would be banging down the door of the Democratic National, the headquarters in New York City, demanding to know why you did this, because they rigged it. They robbed Bernie Sanders. Go ahead.
But Sanders, basically, like I said, he's a taker. He's not a creator. He's saying that he wants Medicare for all. You do realize that a lot of the people who have benefit plans are coming from unions. They're coming from unions. And getting back to my thought about when he ran it with Hillary, she basically said, and I want you to ask this question, how are you going to do this? Okay, the government would have to increase its size by 4 times. It's full Sweden. That's not coming from the top 1%. And if he says, and he does admit, it's going to be, you're going to get more taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I want to know is how much are you going to take from me? I want to know a number. And I want to know, what does this healthcare provide? I want a list of what it does and what it doesn't. He doesn't do that.
He's not going to do that. He doesn't do that.
And this is what adults have to ask. I've used this example before on the show. When you buy a car, you ask the questions: can I finance this? How much is it going to be a month? What's the interest? What? Break it down.
How's the engine?
What do I get in the car? We have to ask him that question. And I will tell you this: if you do, you're not going to get an answer. But if you did get an answer, and he's not going to win, but that's what regarding Sanders. As far as Kamala Harris, and Biden actually exposed her in the debate. She's basically trying to walk the tightrope between a little bit of Obamacare, a little bit of a Bernie Sanders. And what Biden said to her was this: Donald Trump will eat you alive if you flip-flop on that. And he's right. She doesn't want to commit to one or the other. She's in the middle. Garbage.
Well, the thing is that but the one person who going into the general election is going to commit, and who has proven that, okay, I'm not saying he fulfilled all his promises, okay, but no president does. But Donald Trump, okay, is committed to working with the Republicans and whatever middle-of-the-road Democrats like you guys, Tim Ryan, want to join to see what we could do to reduce the health care costs in this country.
By the way, he has a plan coming out.
Who does?
Trump.
Good. I can't wait to see it.
Now, one Democrat will be for it, even if it solves the problems.
Right.
Because they don't want him to succeed.
Going back to our original conversation about the decrepit cities in the United States, to do these things mean you give up power. And if all you're about is power, you don't want to know these solutions. But remember something, all you people out there. When you talk about power, power is quantifiable. You could say when somebody has more power, that means it's taken from somebody else. When government has more power, like Senator Sanders wants to take the whole healthcare industry and nationalize it, remember that power does not come from nowhere. It comes from you. Because when you pay private insurance, okay, you have the choices. It's costly, and that's one of the things they have to work on, really knowing, I say this full well because I'm paying $800 a month, and that's just for me and my wife. They need to bring the cost down, but ultimately I'm in charge. I needed procedures since I've had it. I got my procedures done according to the plan. Deductible, and then they paid the rest. Same with my wife. She had a procedure done. It was paid. I paid the deductible. They paid for the rest. We have control. I say, and my wife says, what I need, and the insurance company pays for it. Okay? I want to know. Now that's my point, Joe.
That's
part of the problem, because that's power, you see. I have power, and my wife has power over our own health care decisions. Okay? I don't want to give that to you, Senator Sanders. I don't want to give that to you, Senator Warren. I don't want to give that to you, Senator Harris. I don't want to give that to you, Mayor Pete. I don't want to give it to any of you. That's my power that I have over my family. Okay? So, but they don't want those solutions because it goes back to what we said earlier. Same reason they don't want solutions in the inner city, because it's all about power.
Well, there it is. And I'm going to tell you, ask those questions. They're important questions. How are you going to do this? And ask them with your adult cap on. Ask them critically. This is not Candyland. I've said this on a million shows, and nothing is free. Nothing is free in life. And I bet you if you ask those questions and you do your research, you'll be shocked. So basically, those were the debates. Nothing really too eventful really came out of it. I think Biden kept to his lead Frankly, it looks like he's probably going to get the nomination. This is my view. I think what's going to drag him down, this is my personal opinion, is the economy and Obamacare, because Obamacare was a bomb. Everyone knows it. No one could look anyone in the face and say it was a success. Joe Biden owns it, and the Trump economy is strong, and the Obama economy was weak. I think he's dead in the water.
I do too.
It's my opinion.
I just want to open some people's eyes real quick, just to finish up the conversation on the DNC. Okay, understand where they are and what they expect of their candidates, and you have to ask yourself: is, even if you're a Democrat or you lean to the left, okay, is that the Democratic Party that I want to be a part of? There were some. Again, I don't agree with them. Biden has always been pro-abortion. And we said it before, his bone that he threw to the pro-life people, all right, and the working people that are pro-life, was we won't have tax, I'll support the Hyde Amendment, okay? Now, in order for Joe Biden to get the nomination, okay, it shows you what you have to do. This was a sitting vice president who is running for president. But he has to kowtow and sell his soul to Planned Parenthood by promising that he is not going to support the Hyde Amendment anymore, which he supported for decades, okay? So he flip-flopped on that. Tim Ryan, mentioned earlier, okay? Pro-life up until 2015, he flip-flops. Why? He's got to sell his soul to Planned Parenthood. If he wants to be on a national stage or to be taken seriously, okay? You have to march in complete ideological lockstep with them. Tulsi Gabbard, who we didn't mention, she's the one who really put the smackdown on Kamala Harris. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That was vicious. And I applaud her for it. I really do. Here's the problem, Tulsi Gabbard. When it came under pressure because you criticized the LGBT cultural agenda, not only just a few years ago, you've changed your position completely. So you know what that shows me? You have no balls either. Now, you're tough, and you were in the military, and I was not in the military. So it doesn't mean that you don't have those kind of balls, okay? But when it came to politics, you caved in, again, because some people don't want this LGBT agenda. Some people are resisting it. Some people are fighting against it, particularly when it comes to the public school system, and you retracted some of the statements you made. I guess it was within the last 10 years. So you showed yourself to be not such a moderate, because one goes over on abortion, the other one goes over on gay marriage. Joe Biden himself, okay, changed his position. Barack Obama himself, they changed their position. I'm only saying this to illustrate, just so everybody's clear where the Democrat Party is, okay? You want to argue about 180 million people keeping their health care, but we have to ensure the rest. We can have that argument. The taxes, things like that. Okay, maybe not with the Bernie Sanders of the world, but with the party in general. But on the cultural issues, you will not stray. You will not stray from where we want you to be, and it is abortion on demand, and it will be all the transgender ideology and the LGBT ideology, that whole cultural agenda that they want to ram down their throat. That's what you will fall in lockstep with, no matter what. And my point in bringing this up, everybody on that stage, all 20 people, have all fallen in lockstep. Either they were there to begin with, or they flip-flop from where they were just very recently. So I just want to make that point about moderation in the Democratic Party. There's not much.
Well, that was a good segue into our third segment. And also, you're with the Front Line with Joe and Joe. We're here every Sunday night at 8 o'clock. Please tell a friend and stay tuned, and as well as give us your comments. They're definitely appreciated.
My baby chimed in, Biden3030.com. He didn't even know his own website information.
Well, there it
is. Actually, I don't get embarrassed too much for people. Biden's gaffes, I do. I feel embarrassed for him.
He's Uncle Joe. He was Uncle Joe when he was the vice president, but I don't think it's going to fly.
Yeah, that's not going to fly now. He's not friendly Uncle Joe. The wolves in the Democratic Party, they're out. They want power. I don't know why, but they look at Biden as being moderate, and they don't want him there, so they want to swoop in. So anyway, we'll be going to be revisiting the Democrats over and over again, because it'll be just one outrage after another. So we'll be back on that. We'll leave it at that for tonight. But remember, there's no moderates in the Democratic Party.
We're going to go to our third segment. I think this is an interesting one. I came across it and discussed it with Joe on Friday. This is coming out of New Jersey. And I'm not talking about the Rolling Stones eating at the TikTok Diner after the Stones concert this week, by the way.
They ate at the
Yes,
TikTok
they
diner?
did order disco fries and Taylor ham. So the Taylor ham pork roll debate is over
That's
in
right.
New Jersey. It's Taylor ham.
Mick Jagger ate Taylor ham and
Thank
disco
you very
fries.
much. It's over. Okay. I didn't want to digress.
I know, that's all right. I did not know that.
Okay, this is coming out of New Jersey too. This is coming out of Lakewood, New Jersey.
Let's preface this by saying this is a little controversial, but I mean,
I think it's a good. I think
it's a good conversation to have. But this is one of the ones that when you talk about being in the breach, this puts us way in the breach, more so than other topics, and it's something that you're right, what you always say. Mainstream media won't give this. They will not give this story. Not just like a minute out of a 24-hour day. They're not giving it 1 second. Too uncomfortable for them. Go ahead.
The Orthodox Jewish community in Lakewood, New Jersey, there's a very large Orthodox Jewish community. Actually, one of my friends from work, his brother lives there, has 13 children, lives in Lakewood, New Jersey. Anyway, they had 3 protests against the New Jersey Pride agenda. The Orthodox Jewish community stepping up to the plate. Like Joe said, this is something that never, ever, ever would be covered. The good news, too, is Protestant and Catholic leaders have joined them in this fight. And the person who spearheaded this I guess, gathering of folks is coming out of Brooklyn. His name is Rabbi Yehuda Levin. He organized it. And there were, like I said, there were 3 debates, and I'm going to go down where they were, and then we can have a little discussion.
Mm-hmm.
The first debate was at the Blue Claw game. They're a minor league baseball team. They're affiliated with the Phillies out of Philadelphia, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they had a Pride night. And obviously, minor league tickets are very reasonable. A lot of families go there, and they took offense that this was basically an affront to their families. And they
basically, there's rainbow flags all over the place at a baseball game.
They protested it. That was the first protest. The second protest was at a library. We all know what's been going on in libraries. The
drag queen hours and things like that.
And they said basically the themes were overarching, and they bring their families in there. They have big families. And this is how it is where I grew up in Rutherford. We have an Orthodox community in Passaic, which is very close to Rutherford. They would go to the Rutherford Public Library. They bring their families, and they all would read. So they protested there. There were 110 people at that protest. That was the largest of the 3. And the last one, which I think was extremely interesting, there is a representative in New Jersey. He's a state assemblyman. He's the first Orthodox Jewish state assemblyman in the history of New Jersey. His name is Gary Shayer. He held a fundraiser for another Jewish, I believe he's Orthodox as well, in Illinois, in New Jersey. And the Orthodox Jewish community protested him because this gentleman stands for the policies of the LGBTQ,
right?
Like,
whatever.
you know, same-sex marriage. And obviously, this is something that Orthodox Jews do not believe in. This is something, and the reason why I thought this is a good topic to bring up, everyone always assumes it's just Christians, the Christian right. That is not true. Orthodox Jews are not for same-sex marriage.
No.
Orthodox Jews are not for boys going to the bathroom in girls' locker rooms.
Right.
As any rational person wouldn't.
They're
And
not
it's
for.
a pervasive idea across the world, by the way. This is just, to be honest with you, a trendy thing. And in 50 years, maybe even 100 years, people will look back on it and said, you allowed boys to go to the bathroom in girls' locker rooms? What's wrong with you?
That's right.
That's what my grandfather would say. That's what my grandmother would say. She'd be like, what's wrong with you? You're going to let your 14-year-old girl get dressed in front of an 18-year-old senior in high school? What are you, crazy?
Well, you know, it's the same thing when it comes to, let's say, for argument's sake, when you're talking about, I think you used earlier, you used the word, let's say, those who are culturally religious, whether it be cultural Catholic or a cultural Protestant or a cultural Jew, usually don't represent the beliefs, the tenets, the teachings of the religion, okay? And usually the bad guys are the ones who adhere to the moral law, the natural law, recognition of the natural law, of social order, of strong families, okay, of protecting their families in the case of these Orthodox Jews who are interested in defending their children from this insanity, because that's what it is. Let's call it what it is. Transgender ideology and the rest of it. This is insanity that these Orthodox Jews said, not with our kids. Not with our kids. You're not coming into our library. All right. And yes, blasting the supposed Orthodox Jew who's all pro-LGBT and pro-transgender and rainbow flags all over the place. Okay, but this is the problem that goes on in the Jewish community, is the same problem that goes on in the Catholic world, is the same problem that goes in the Protestant world, is anyone who actually adheres to the strict moral teachings of let's call it Judeo-Christianity. Okay, not excluding Muslims, please understand this. Let's call it the line from Judaism to Christianity, all the problems aside, and there are many, many problems and differences, but underneath it all, it's a recognition of the moral law and of the natural law. And if you're a liberal Protestant, you blast conservative Protestants and evangelicals. If you're a cultural cafeteria Catholic, you can't stand traditional Catholics. Oh, all those people that just want the traditional Latin Mass. And if you're a secular Jew, you have no time for these Orthodox Jews. They go through the same thing we do. You know that they will be attacked for this by their own kind, by those who self-identify as Jews, and they go through the same problems.
I give them so much credit because you know something, the odds are against them, and they're willing to stand up and fight. We have to be the same way. I tip my hat to our friends, and they are our friends in this fight. I respect them greatly for what they did, and they are doing what we should be doing. That's what this show is about. Mm-hmm. That's why we started this show. We have to raise our voices against this craziness that's going on. Again, we don't look left, we don't look right, we look up. We're concerned with the truth. And frankly, the Orthodox Jews who stood up against this agenda, which is an affront to the family, it is an affront to kids, their kids, they're not shying away from telling the truth. Well, and neither are we, and neither should you.
That you know, it's the one thing is that I was reading the article when you sent it to me, and I saw that, you know, Catholics had joined in. I would have been like, had I known about it, I would have gone. I absolutely would have gone, and I would have joined them in that protest. Okay, and again, Joe and I never shy away from the fact that there are fundamental differences in religion, and they're not reconcilable. I'm sorry, okay, they're not. But one thing is that we all still have to work and play well together, okay, and live together, okay. And I feel comfortable living next to Orthodox Jews more than I do living next to your typical liberal Catholic. No, the typical liberal Catholic's got no problem with gay marriage, got no problem with teachers telling their 4 or 5-year-old there's no such thing as boys or girls. You think the Catholics are any better than, let's say, liberal Catholics are any better than, let's say, secular Jews or liberal Protestants?
They're the same.
They're the same.
They just embrace the pagan lifestyle that, you know, like they're embracing the culture that is destroying America. America is falling apart, my friends. We began the show talking about shooting. This is a consequence of the choices that we have made as a society.
Right.
Do you realize that the founders of this country said democracy does not work when the population is amoral? Democracy only works when we have a moral voting base. This is both Democrat and Republican. It used to be we were never perfect as a country, let's be real.
Right.
But it was better than it is now.
Right.
And it's out of control. These things that we talk about on this show, Sunday after Sunday, are consequences. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. We are all free to make choices, and we do every day. We all make choices in our life. We make choices, the list goes on, and I'm not going to get into all of them, all the choices. The consequences come with the choices. Our nation makes choices by the people we put in office and by the policies which are put into law. The choices have consequences, and we're seeing the fruit of bad choices.
But they think, yes, the left, particularly the cultural left, okay, they think, well, these are not bad choices. Now, either they're stupid or they do this by design, like they really are leftists and they want the destruction of Western civilization, okay? Or they're just stupid if they can't see this. I want to say, we've spoken before, and like I said earlier, or many times, you know, Joe and I, we listen to other people. A lot of people have a lot of things to say. We have something to say, but we listen to other people. Mike Knowles said something really, I thought, interesting, because he's one that he's talking our language, but he put it in a way that I thought was interesting. Andrew Breitbart was the one who said, politics is downstream from culture. And Mike Knowles recognized that in the interview that I watched, but then he also said, but culture is downstream from God. In other words, if you have a culture that's basically, he didn't say it in those words, but what he basically was saying was, our culture is a mess because of what you said. We've thrown God out. We have a moral breakdown. We made that choice, is my point.
We have
as a nation, even though individually we have not made that choice, but as a nation, it seems like we've made that choice. Okay, and when you make that choice, then you kick God out. Okay, not that that's ever possible, because God loves us too much to be kicked out. But you kick God out, tell him you don't want him in our society.
Our free will.
No, he does. He does. But then that trickles down into the culture trickles down into the politics, where I'm sorry, I could see the Hollywood movie coming out made by secular Jews in Hollywood that are going to come out and blast these good people down in Lakewood, New Jersey, or the Dove Hikins of the world over in Brooklyn, you know, and that Orthodox community over there that always is very conservative. It's only places in Brooklyn that actually votes Republican in a mayoral or gubernatorial election
I was at
in New York.
An abortion protest on Wall Street in front of the original state capitol where George Washington, the statue is, and Orthodox Jews were there.
Of course,
from Brooklyn.
They know this is they know abortion is an abomination.
This is not the first time, and I think it's important to know that the religious right, the evangelical right, is we're not evangelical, but these are not the only people who think this way.
Right.
There are many people who think this way, and frankly, a lot of them are afraid. We have to raise our voices. This is not something that is compatible with the way I want to raise my kids. I'm not saying all people need to be respected, and I respect all people, but I'm going to tell you right now, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. And there are no substitutes to that. I'm so sorry. A man cannot be a woman, and a woman cannot be a man, and a man brings something to a marriage that a woman cannot bring, and a woman brings something to a marriage that a man cannot bring. They are equal but different, and those differences are needed in raising kids. And when they are not there are consequences.
Can I cut in real quick? Very quickly. I want to just dovetail off what you're saying, okay? Exactly right, okay? And moreover, if you want to disagree with us on that, and obviously you know I agree with everything Joe just said, if you want to disagree with us on that, then let's have that thing you're always looking to have. Let's have a dialogue. Let's have a real conversation. But one thing that we're not going to allow you to do, and these blessed Orthodox Jews in Lakewood would not allow you to do, keep your hands off our kids. Keep your filthy hands off our kids. Do not try to corrupt. And these are children who are below, imagine a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, or at least above the age of reason. What about these 5- and 6-year-olds? They're below the age of reason. We know what you're trying to do. It would be like if somebody's banging down your door, I'm coming after your kids, and you're the bad guy for saying, I'm not opening the door.
And that's
I'm not opening the door, and that's what they're protesting.
And that's what they're protesting.
If you have real balls, if you have real nerve, okay, if you have the truth that you claim you don't even believe in, but if you think you have something truthful to say and that's on your side, then have that dialogue. Have that conversation. But leave the kids out of it. They're not your kids. Joe's kids are not your kids. You want to teach your kids, if you even have kids, if all you pro-abortion lefties out there have allowed some of your conceived children to actually come out of the womb and be born, okay? We are not bothering your kids, okay? Don't ram that stuff. Don't try to confuse our children. That will not be allowed at all. You want to sit down at the adult table? We'll sit down at the adult table, okay? But you cannot go after our kids. We know that that's your game. We know you're busted. In other words, the light has been shown, has been shined on you. We know that's what you're doing. We know what your agenda is. And now you're going to call us bad guys when we say stop. Or these Orthodox Jews say stop. No. The answer is no. Joe and I always say it. The answer is no. And God bless them for protecting their children and protecting their families. Don't allow this to happen. Don't let them bully us. We said it before. You're not going to be allowed to bully us. It's not going to happen. We are fighting back, and it's great. They went right to these representatives, this representative, the state assemblyman, and they said, no way. Not happening. Not in Lakewood, New Jersey, anyway.
I think that's great.
And we need to do that all over the place. So
that was a good conversation.
Yeah, it was. I only had, I think, 2 veins pop out of my head because you know the whole Democrat, the conversation on the Democrats in the second segment, that's just kind of like laughable. So it's like, I might get angry, but in a kind of like a comedic way. So I don't stress over that. This stuff I stress over, the destruction of cities. Whereas E. Michael Jones over at Culture Wars wrote a book on it, the slaughter of cities, kind of implying that it was not just the destruction of cities, but it was somewhat intentional, okay? That we saw this in our lives. We lived in a vibrant area. North Arlington and Newark are right next to each other, okay? It's all part of the same thing. The people are the same. The culture is the same, all right? Predominantly Italian-American at the time. These were working-class neighborhoods, far from perfect. There's no Garden of Eden, but these were good places to live, okay? Those cities, those neighborhoods, they were destroyed, all right? And it was destroyed in large part by the white liberals sending in the black liberals, okay? Putting them in places of power, okay? Mayor, district attorneys, chief of police, the whole 9 yards, okay? And they wrecked these cities. Well, it's time to take it out of the hands of these people and bring the power back to the people. And the solutions that we pointed out, I think, are very good solutions. So anyway, thank you so much for joining the front line with Joe and Joe. We had a lot of people chiming in tonight. Dominica was checking in. Madeline, thanks for checking in. Eddie down in Florida and the rest of you, Artie. But we'll be back. Remember, we're on Facebook at 8 o'clock on Sunday nights. Facebook Live on the front line with Joe and Joe. And also on HolyFaith Media and Arana, A-R-A-N-A. HolyFaith Media and Arana Nation on YouTube. And not for anything. I mean, I think combined between Facebook and those
2,000 views,
way over 2,000 views last week. And that's a good place to be for the short time we're doing this. That means we're striking a nerve. So just remember from my brother here, Joe Resinello, and myself, keep in mind that our conversation is your conversation. And Joe, where's that conversation going on?
It's happening everywhere, my friend.
See you next week.
Be well.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. Once more, dear friends, let us go into the breach.